Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Unique Moments, where we take a moment to breathe, take a moment to pause, reconnecting mind, body, and spirit. And on today's episode, we do have a special guest. His name is Deepak Chari, and he is an engineer and certified biofeedback specialist. And in the episode, his work, he helps men and women to release hidden emotional blocks from stress, anxiety, past emotional experiences with his Advanced Voice Biofeedback Technology. So that's what we're going to talk about in the episode and a little bit more about him. He's also the co-founder of the Chari Center of Health, and he is the creator of his life transformation technology. And he promotes emotional healing and mental clarity and peak performance for people. And that's what we're going to be talking about. But before we get into the episode, I did pull a card. And the card that we pulled is Worthy. And it says, "You, my dear, are enough. You are enough for your most daring of hopes. You are enough for your deepest of desires. You are enough for the purest of love. And you have enough strength to conquer your darkest of fears. You, my love, are enough for abundance beyond measure. And being created, you are, by default, worthy of the life of your wildest dreams." And I think this card fits in the episode because he talks about how he helps people to transform their lives, maybe when they felt that they weren't enough, or someone told them that they weren't enough, or that they wouldn't amount to anything, or all of these things, all these labels that we pick up or that people put on us. We can forget how worthy we are, how inherently worthy we are. Before we've accomplished something, before we've hit the goal, hit the milestone, accomplished whatever, we are inherently worthy of the life we desire, of our dreams, of our goals, of our insert whatever you want here. You're worthy of it. And I think that's very fitting for the episode and for the conversation. So without further ado, welcome Deepak Chari to Unique Moments. And I just want to thank you. Thank you for being on the episode. And I'm excited to get into our interview and discuss your work and how it can be beneficial to everybody who's listening and watching this podcast. So thank you so much for being here.
It's a pleasure to be here, Samara.
So just to get started, why don't you tell the people just a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do, how you got into your work, and yeah, who are you?
Absolutely. So my name is Deepak Chari. I'm an engineer and certified biofeedback specialist, and I've been practicing advanced voice biofeedback technology with my life transformation technology program for 20 years at this point. But to get into the work I'm doing for emotional healing and balance, I started on my own journey of how I got into this work. I ended up helping thousands of people all over the US and world, but it started with my own challenging journey. And that challenging journey was being bullied since I was a kid. You see, I decided to become an engineer simply because my father was an engineer. He immigrated from India. My parents immigrated from South India in the early 60s, and then I was a first-generation kid born here along with my sister. So when I was growing up as a kid, I was bullied, kind of pushed around, that kind of thing, and intimidated by others. So what I would do, my safe place, Samara, was hiding in the library. So I would hide in the library for good lengths of time, and I would stay in different aisles, for some variety, or, if it was not safe in certain other aisles.
Right.
So I would just sort of hide there. But while I was there, I needed to occupy my time. So I would grab books from the shelf. Well, they weren't such random books, I found out later on, because they were on the law of attraction, as I found out later
Mm,
on. Books by Napoleon Hill, W. Clement Stone, As a Man Thinketh, How to Win Friends and Influence People, Dale Carnegie, and many, many other books. So I didn't realize I was actually programming myself in a positive way. But I was reading these books to boost my own self-esteem and self-worth, of which I had none of, so I
right.
could face these bullies on a daily basis. So this continued on throughout my elementary school, junior high, and high school. But the bullying changed from being pushed around to being not included in groups. In fact, not included in any groups. So I was told, you know what, you didn't fit in our group or their group. You don't fit in any group, so you can just be on your own. So I felt alone and abandoned. So when I graduated from high school, I thought, okay, this bullying pattern's got to end because this is an immature, childish kind of pattern.
Right,
But,
right.
but what I found out, it was a program I had downloaded, which I'll share about how I got it to begin with, which continued even into my adulthood. Because I went to the Dean of Engineering to be an engineer, simply because my father was an engineer. I said, I'd like to be an engineer. And he said, he looked at me, he kind of squinted his eyes, he goes, I don't think you have what it takes to be an engineer. I think you're more suited for the building on the other side of campus. And I said, well, if I understand you correctly, the building on the other side of campus is the theater department. So are you saying I'm better suited to be an actor than an engineer? He says, well, he kind of made his face like that. So the answer was yes.
Correct.
So I was an 18-year-old kid, rebellious. I said, I'm going to show you. I'm going to be the best engineer you've ever seen in your life, and da-da-da-da-da. And so I said, I'm going to, in spite of what he said, I'm going to do it. So I pursued it with a vengeance as I was working part-time to support myself. And then I even did my master's degree to even show him further that I'm going to, bypass all his expectations. So, of course, it would have been nice if he just supported me,
Right.
but, I had to go that route. But this is the key, Samara. Throughout that whole time, I was drawing very abusive, narcissistic, condescending, manipulative, bullying friends, classmates, bosses, supervisors, and even relationships, all at the same time. So even if I left that job and said, these people are very condescending and mean, I would draw the same kind of pattern. The people looked different, even their personality was different, but the same pattern kept going on. Same with my friends. So I thought, wait a minute, this bullying pattern is continuing, it's not ending. Will it ever stop? So that led to me on a journey for searching for how to get out of this situation. Now, there's a flashback to my childhood because as I was growing up, I was giving my father these blood pressure medications and other medications that the doctor said would help him with his health. He was under a lot of stress at work. So I would give him this every day. But suddenly, at the age of 51, he suddenly died of a massive heart attack.
Wow.
So my mom was left as a widow with 2 young teenage kids. And then I looked at my sister and I said, how did this happen? Why did this happen? And how can we prevent this from happening to anyone else in the future? We actually said that even though we were teenagers. So this all connects here. Fast forward, my sister, and I said we are going to do something about it. My sister decided to pursue medicine after that happened with our father. But she wanted to do medicine in a different way, functional medicine-wise. What that means is going to the root cause versus the symptom and finding a natural, safe solution versus the pharmaceutical approach. So she studied, that was a long approach, but she did it. When she graduated, she said, you know what? We both said, let's form our own practice. Let's call it the Chari Center of Health, our last name, in tribute to our father who passed at such a young age, and prevent this from happening to anyone else. So she worked on one person after the next, healing them in a natural approach and getting amazing results. So I was working as an engineer in the field. Remember, I pursued, I'm going to show you, improving productivity and efficiency in companies. But as I observed her, Samara, I said, wow, look at all the people she's healing of all these conditions. It's changing their whole life. And though I'm improving productivity and efficiency in all these companies, it's great. But it seemed to be more inspiring to change someone's life in that way. But I thought, I don't have a medical degree, but I would like to participate in the center that my sister and I formed a business partnership of. So you know what I did? This connects to when in my childhood being bullied. Remember grabbing those books off the shelf on the law of attraction? I said, universe, can you somehow help me with my gifts and talents in engineering to somehow heal people in some way so I can move from this engineering field into the healing area? And I forgot all about it. 2 weeks later, some friends came up to me and said, Deepak, this guy's going to be speaking in Santa Monica, California. We lived in San Diego, California at the time, about how your voice reflects everything that's limiting you in your subconscious. Negative emotions, guilt, shame, regret, low self-esteem, low self-worth, sadness, anger, whatever it is. And most importantly, how you could send frequencies and harmonics and other high technology to this person to release that limiting pattern quickly and easily, no matter how long they've had that pattern. So I thought, that sounds pretty neat. But I didn't realize these light bulbs went off as I listened to him presenting that, wait a minute, I had put my attention to the universe, right? Maybe this is something I could do at our Chari Center of Health. Then I thought, wait a minute, could this clear this bullying pattern, that endless bullying pattern I've had my whole life? So I went up to him and said, I would like to apprentice with you. And he said, well, I'll take on one more person, and that's about it. And I was in the right place at the right time.
As it
So
works. That's how it always works.
isn't that amazing? I didn't even know about all this. So he trained me, he watched me in the trenches as I worked on clearing people of depression, anxiety, fears, phobias, emotional trauma, whatever. And he said, I think you got it down. So I said, great. So then I said, you know what? I have this engineering degree. I bet I could do something with this. Maybe I can improve productivity and efficiency in this method itself. Maybe streamline it, shortcut some of the time, maybe optimize it, which I did in industries. So I did it in this technique, and I shortened it, and I got even better results faster. So I said, great, now I can practice at the Chari Center of Health. But wait a second, I thought, let me work on myself first. Can I clear this bullying pattern that I talked to you about that I had my whole life? So I worked on myself, and I felt better and better and lighter, which is one of the things that happens as you clear these patterns. I said, okay, I feel that same pattern I saw in other people when I cleared them. So let me see what happens. Well, guess what? All those mean, narcissistic, condescending, manipulative, gaslighting people around me started not wanting to be around me anymore, Samara. They said, you know, I don't want to be around you anymore. And they started leaving in hordes. And I suddenly thought, oh no, now I'm losing people, even though they're terrible people. But guess what? Soon after that, I started drawing loving, nurturing, caring, supportive people in my life. And guess what? I had no concept of even what that was.
Yeah.
And why I share that with your viewers and listeners is that even if you've gone through your whole life attracting these horrible relationships, situations, and even events in your life, or even sadness or depression or anxiety that you're not able to clear, you can have that freedom. You can have that, you can draw wonderful, loving, nurturing people in your life, even if you grew up in a dysfunctional family. It doesn't matter. So that's why I'm sharing that with you. So then, since I had that experience, I ended up saying, okay, now I can help others doing that, because it clearly proved it for myself. And
Right.
then it turned out to a few thousand people all over the US and world. That's how I got into my journey.
Wow. That was really awesome. And I was thinking back to the beginning, just how you were saying, you ended up in the library. I think it's so funny how synchronicities happen in the universe, and you're, like you said, you're just in the right place at the right time. And sometimes you might not know, okay, when I'm going to need this information or when I'm going to use this information, but it's like you kept going and you persevered and you did it anyway. And look, it amounted to this thing, which is so crazy. And it's funny
Yes.
how you recall and going into, I have a question about the subconscious mind. And I'm really fascinated with the subconscious mind. One, because of how much influence and impact it actually has over our daily lives and our experiences and our thoughts and what we think and our patterns. And so my question to you, which is kind of mirrored in you, because all those things that you were studying about the law of attraction and as a man thinketh, and how it ended up being so helpful and just there for you to recall, because you already imparted that in your knowledge and your mind. And so, in your experience, like how how does the subconscious mind, or like different ancestral patterns, like how does that impact us in the way that we think and the way that we act, and what is your work and how you go about like clearing that for people? And like a two-part question, do people have to be aware, of their certain patterns and what's going on in their subconscious before they can clear it? Or is it like you kind of just have techniques that you can do and, clear those patterns to where you can kind of live a better life and, like you said, attract those good-hearted people and good-natured people?
Those are great questions. So, first of all, I was going to talk about, well, why did I even draw this bullying pattern to begin with? I thought it's not something I never wanted. And I know your
Right.
viewers and listeners didn't want those situations they got into either. 99% of my clients are women, and the most common thing they say is, Deepak, I'm not heard, understood, valued, appreciated, acknowledged. And I'm a good person. I said, it has nothing to do with how good you are, how wonderful you are. Of course, you're a wonderful woman,
Yeah.
but it's something that's downloaded to you from your subconscious. And so I found out, Samara, that there's 4 phases we went through after studying this at length. Where do these patterns come from, right? In your subconscious. The first phase is when your parents decide to procreate you. Okay, I'm being very blunt and direct here, but this is how it works. In the moment they are creating you as a child, whatever feelings they have in that moment as they're procreating you get downloaded into your energy field. Imagine you go to a computer store, you buy a brand new laptop, right? There's nothing on the hard drive. It's a clean hard drive. But that's us. But if our father was saying, I'm not really happy where I am in my life right now. I should have been much further ahead. Somebody, got ahead of me in the wrong way. I was wrong, or I was betrayed by someone in the past. And I had a really rough upbringing that I never got over. I'm not really happy in this relationship with this woman who might be your potential mom. Anyway, it's not really what I wanted. Well, all of that frustration, guilt, regret, shame, sadness gets down, a certain percentage of that, which I can actually quantify in my work, gets downloaded into your energy field, which otherwise has nothing. The same for your mom. Let's say she wasn't so happy with your father, or she thought maybe it'll improve since once we have this kid, or or she's not happy where she is in her life. Also, a certain percentage of that gets downloaded into your energy field already. But guess what? So do the unresolved issues of your parents as well, your grandparents on both sides, your mom's mom, mom's dad, dad's mom, and dad's dad. If they all had issues, and I can tell you, I haven't seen any case where the grandparents didn't have issues, depressions, anxieties, fears, phobias, emotional traumas, regrets, whatever. A certain percentage of their unresolved issues also get downloaded into your energy field. Now, you might think, well, what if my grandparents all died before I was born, right? Yeah, they won't affect me. No, they will. You're not consciously aware of them there, but they are in your energetic field, you see? And your subconscious is accessing the field. So even though you consciously don't know it, and by the way, your conscious mind is only 1% of the equation, the other 99%, as you said, is the subconscious mind. That's running our life. So you're getting the unresolved issues from the field, whether you knew it or not, from all of them, too. So your unresolved issues from mom and dad, unresolved percentage of issues from your mom's mom, mom's dad, dad's dad, dad's mom. That's just phase one. Then there's phase two. What's phase two? Phase two is you're in your mom's womb for 9 months incubating, but you're also absorbing every thought, feeling, and emotion that your mom is having. Maybe she's regretting. Maybe she's not so happy with your dad. Maybe they're fighting. By the way, you pick up that energy. Maybe she even thought, you know what, I didn't want to have this child right now. Or maybe not at all. What do you think the message goes to the child? I wasn't wanted. Yeah, without any words being said. So all those things go to the kid. And was it a safe environment, or was the father, was there emotional abuse, physical abuse? Was it a safe nurture, or was it a safe environment, or was it not safe where you're walking on eggshells? The kid picks all that up. Then you go into phase three. That's already 2 phases. What's phase three? Phase three is when you're born. And now you're born into the world. Well, guess what? You have the direct influence of the parents and or grandparents and people older than us, like teachers, uncles, aunts, and other mentors, who we absorb whatever they say to us. If the father said, you know what, I wish you were more talented like the rest of the family. I wish you were more intelligent. I wish you were taller. I wish you had a better voice. I wish you look like that person. Look at that person across the street. Look how nice they look, how beautiful they look, how tall they stand. Why can't you be like them? What's the message? I'm not good enough. I have to be like somebody else. So I actually had a parent tell their son, who is now an adult, when I worked on them, that, you know what, I don't think you'll amount to much more than a ditch digger in your whole life. Could I believe that? No, but these are actual case studies. Or a teacher that told a kid that you're not pretty, you don't have a good personality, I don't think you'll amount to much. Yes, these are actual case studies. So what happens is that imprints the kid. And you know what, Samara, what I found? The most imprintable ages, is from age 0 to 7. Whatever is said in those years, and I said there's hundreds of years of data on this, it just goes right in. No questioning. Even as an adult, when you say, well, that was ridiculous, my mom and dad said, you accept it from 0 to 7.
Yeah.
And
That's where it's
secondly,
forming your subconscious.
yeah, and second highest from 8 to 12. So therefore, from age 0 to 12, whatever said or done, especially 0 to 7, goes right in the subconscious without question. So therefore, after 12, you have a blueprint of how you see the world from that on. And even what you draw into your life, and it repeats over and over again. Relationships, people, teachers, mentors, bosses, supervisors, AKA the bullying pattern. That was unresolved issues from my ancestors, and they didn't even probably know it's there. And you asked another question, like, do you have to know about it? Well, you probably won't know everything, because every thought, feeling, emotion, and that you have in every moment of time, every fraction, a quadrillionth of a second, is stored in your subconscious. And you're not going to remember every single detail, but your subconscious does.
Yeah.
And the emotions in all of those moments. That's what gets triggered, you see? So in answer to your question, you don't need to know really any of that would happen in your past, because it will resurface. The emotions will start releasing as we work on it. So that's what projects forward in time. And that's why people, the most, like some women, the women I work with, most common thing is they draw these, as they said, horrible men in their life who are narcissistic, condescending, manipulative, gaslighting, controlling, and also can be emotionally and physically abusive
And they're
too.
like, I'm so sweet. How am I
That
drawing
is
all of this
exactly what
attention?
they
Yeah.
they said, that is exactly what they told me. I'm such a sweet, compassionate, caring, loving woman. I never wanted this in my life. Why would I draw these horrible jerks in my life? This is their words. I said, you are that woman, 100%. But the programming within you, the downloads you got, the ancestral imprints, I call them, from your parents and grandparents and your childhood when you're growing up, is what created that situation. Many of them may have had a dysfunctional childhood. The parents were fighting all the time. Maybe the parents divorced. Maybe there was physical and emotional abuse, which the kids saw. So what was programmed from 0 to 12? This is what a relationship is. Do they want that as an adult? Heck no. But that's what they're programmed to see for the 99%. The 1% says, I want this kind of relationship. Honest, loving, caring, gentle man in my life. But the 99% says, well, this is what I have in my data banks. Who's going to win this hand wrestling match?
That
Every time.
99% every
Yeah.
time.
What about self-sabotage, right? Every time they try to go to interview, flat tire, engine starts going on, something happens, they forget where their keys are, they go late for the appointment. All these things happen. Oh, it's just a thing that happened, Deepak. I said, really? No, you actually created this. No, Deepak, I couldn't have. Well, actually you did,
It's
because
never
you're
just
walking projectors of every thought, feeling, and emotion and experience from our past and experience we were programmed with, and we project that in the future and draw it into our life. That is, until we can clear it with this work. Now, remember, I talked about the 3 phases, right? Your parents procreate you, you're in your mom's womb for 9 months. Then the 3rd phase is you're born into the world, directly interface with them in whatever they say or do. But there's a 4th phase. What's 4th phase? Is when you take phase 1, 2, and 3 and you do those patterns into your own life, like my bullying pattern, and then you create those own challenging situations that your parents and grandparents experienced in their lives into your own life, and then into your kids' lives. And then your kids do the same thing.
and the
So
cycle repeats.
the cycle repeats. So that's why when I created this program and modified it and polished it, I called it my Life Transformation Technology Program, because it'll literally transform your life and clear those 4 phases I talked about. So you're liberated out of this repeating pattern that goes on over and over again, and you're like a rocket ship that just blasts out of that into whole new frontiers, creating a whole new reality versus the reality you would have just repeated over and over again.
Wow, I love that. So, can you explain a bit about like how does your advanced voice biofeedback work? You talked about how specifically people's words, you're not pretty enough, you're not smart enough, why can't you be like them? Like the words are so powerful and your voice is so powerful, especially when other people are telling you things and you're imparting that into your subconscious mind. So, can you speak about specifically how does your technology work and why does it work? What's the mechanism?
That's a great question. So when I'm working with the client and it's all done remotely from the comfort of their home, they'll have a headset where I'll listen to their voice, and the software that I have them download to their computer, I can record the energy of their voice, not actually the words they're saying, the emotional energy. And I'll create what are called computerized voice maps. So they'll talk in samples of like 15 seconds at a time, and I'll create these, you could call it emotional heat map, and it'll show the emotional charge from their subconscious, because my process takes them into an altered state of conscious where I can access the subconscious. So from that, I can create a voice map, a computerized voice map of their conscious mind, their subconscious mind, their parents' voice map of their parents, in other words, their mom, their dad, their relationships that they currently are in or just had, and the relationships before that, and all of their grandparents as well, voice maps of all their grandparents as well. And this will create an ancestral voice analysis map of their whole life. And from that, I can actually see the percentage of the emotional imprints and what those emotional imprints were that they picked up from each of these people, their parents and grandparents, which influenced them in what they drew into their life, those relationships.
Wow.
In fact, I can even tell them, you got this percentage of this perception of that person from, from the father, and this percentage, 80% of this perception from your mother, and maybe 90% of this way you look at things from your father's father, who may have died way before you were born. So you had no concept of who your father's father is. Maybe all your grandparents died before you were born, but you might have got 90%, 80% of their way of looking at things, even if it was destructive, into your imprint, into your subconscious, which overrid what you got from your parents.
Mm-hmm.
How many times, Samara, have you seen grandkids walk, act, and talk like their grandparent, who may have died before the kid was even born? They kind of walk sideways, they kind of talk in a
Mm-hmm.
drawl
Or
maybe, and they
laugh like
kind of,
them.
and act like them.
Mm-hmm.
And guess what? Even think like them.
Yeah.
And maybe repeat the same actions like them later on in life. And the kid didn't even know who the grandparent was because that download overrided even their parents' download. But I can actually quantify all that. So once I quantify all that, then in that first half hour or the first hour and a half session, and it'll explain to the person why things happen in their life the way they did. Then I'll customize the strategy for them of, okay, now that you understand where this all came from, why things happen in your life the way they did, let's have a strategy of clearing it. The first step is we'll clear the imprints that you picked up from your dad, that you're not even consciously aware of, by the way. And then we'll clear the imprints that you picked up from your mom. It may take a couple sessions for each of them because it took a lifetime to get to this point, but it'll a fraction of the time to clear it. Then we'll clear the limiting imprints you picked up in your childhood, just like my bullying pattern, or maybe different unfortunate emotional or physical abuses that many kids have gone through. There's
Mm-hmm.
different key childhood events. We have all had them.
Mm-hmm.
And that formed how we see the world today. I got to clear the emotional charge of those limiting experiences that you had in your childhood. Now, once I've done that, the next step is I will clear what's going on in your life right now. Well, Deepak, I just had a breakup in my relationship, or I just got fired from my job, or somebody betrayed me, or whatever it is, or I had some trauma that happened. I will clear what's going on in your current life so that it'll be easier to focus. And then I will say, okay, tell me about your current relationship, or one you just had, and the ones before that. Because unless we clear the emotional imprints that you picked up from the relationships you were in, you're going to repeat that again.
Mm-hmm.
Because the relationships you were in or had before were created because of your upbringing as a kid. So we clear the baseline, but we also have to clear what you drew into your life because you got your own emotional charges from those experiences too. Hope that makes sense to your
It does.
viewers and listeners.
Mm-hmm.
So once we clear that, now you're on a clean playing field. And now we can go to the next stage, which is clearing the imprints you picked up from your grandparents, even if you didn't know a single one. Yes, you can. It's amazing how much emotions start releasing from the grandparents that the person didn't even know. It'll just start pouring out of them.
Wow.
And throughout the whole process, as we clear these imprints, you will get a voice, Samara, like you've never had in your life. I can assure you of that. That is absolute. That will happen. So, and think about this. Aren't we all communicating, as you are in your wonderful podcast, with so many viewers and listeners? Imagine if we took away, for anyone who's just talking to others, right? What if they don't? You know the most common thing the women tell me? Deepak, I'm not seen, heard, acknowledged, appreciated, valued. They'll be speaking to someone for like 20 minutes very passionately, and I don't know if you or any of your viewers or listeners experience this, and then the person will say after 20 minutes of the person passionately expressing this, I'm sorry, were you saying something to me?
Literally, or what did you say? What were you saying?
What did you say? What did you say? Like, yeah, I spent the last 20 minutes talking to you. Can you tell me what you're saying again? I was like, well, now my mojo kind of is gone. Like, well, I'm
Right.
just saying this,
Right.
Then why does that happen? You know why? Because we are not heard. And I'll go, would you like to know the technical reason why we're not heard?
I would love, please, please.
Okay. Let's say we have 60 trillion cells in our body. I know there's varying numbers people say, but we have a lot of them, right?
Hmm.
Let's just go with that. Did you know when you speak, I used to think we just speak with our vocal cords, right? No. You speak with every cell of your body, all 60 trillion cells of your body at the same time. And you
Wow.
speak mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually with every bit of your being when you speak about anything. So it's not just your vocal cords. No, that's why when I record your voice, I can see everything about you that you don't probably even know fully about,
Hmm.
because I look at it objectively. So imagine now every cell in your body, all 60 trillion cells, has a piano keyboard. And if viewers or listeners, whether you played piano or not, there are 12 keys on a piano that repeat. So just to simplify it, let's say there's 12 keys in each cell, like a keyboard. Now, this is the thing. Why are people not heard? Okay. I found in this research that I'm doing with this work, innovative work, that different emotions squash different keys of that keyboard. For example, anger squashes different notes of that 12-key keyboard. Sadness and grief squashes different notes of that 12-key keyboard. Fear and overwhelm squash different notes. Low self-esteem, low self-worth, different notes. Trauma, different notes, so on and so forth. So if some people had a lot of those things combined, a lot of those notes on those keyboards not heard, because it literally squashes the key from playing, from being heard. Okay? So you can't hear it. So this process that I'm using, this unique process, let's say someone for 20, 30 years is depressed, okay? Or frustrated in their life, whatever it may be. Those keys are not heard in their voice, no matter how loud they speak. So I'll reverse engineer it. I will get that stuck key that's not playing because of some depression or whatever it may be to play, regardless of whatever the emotion is. Reverse engineering it. So whatever is sitting on those keys, once this key starts playing, will start releasing out of your person. Because those negative emotions cannot stay in an otherwise harmonized environment. In other words, the key's playing. So they'll feel those limiting emotions releasing, and then I'll measure their voice and I'll say, you know what? Now I hear those notes in your voice that I couldn't hear before, which were related to anger or sadness. So, and the person will say, yeah, I felt the lifting of that sadness. So it'll be a perfect match. And then I'll hear that those notes in their voice is a confirmation of that. So then so when those same people talk to others that didn't listen to them before, suddenly the person will lean back because the power of their voice is so strong, even though they're saying the exact same words they said before.
Mm. So when that happens, like when someone has released those patterns or released the trauma, the depression, the fears, whatever was holding them back, outside of people being able to, finally hear them with all 60 trillion cells, like what are some other things that you've observed that people experience after they've done this healing work? Maybe a specific client story or just some general patterns that you notice, like what are some things that open up for people whenever they do your program?
Yeah, I have some great classic examples of that. Remember, I talked about the women not being heard, seen or heard. Well, I worked with the woman who was in executive management, and she worked with men in this case, and she had brilliant ideas of how they could double, triple the money they're making. Always offered that to the men there, but they never listened to her, right, as I talked about. And that was because of programming from her childhood and upbringing. So anyway, they lost millions instead of made. She thought they listened to her, but they didn't. So they were very upset about that. And so she came to me frustrated. Deepak, I gave them the ideas of how they can not only, they would double their money, but they didn't listen to me at all. They did their own thing. They lost tons of money. And why didn't they listen to me? I said, well, I'm listening to your voice, and I don't really hear much of your voice. And that's
Mm-hmm.
because of this programming from your childhood and upbringing. But we can clear that. So I cleared that pattern for her, and I said, I know you're a brilliant woman. You'll think of some other ideas of what they can do. And they're going to really hear you this time. She said, really? I said, yeah. So she went and told them, okay, you guys didn't listen to me when I told you this great advice. I have another idea how you can get yourself out of this hole and then even go above that to another level. They said, so she shared this idea, and they go, that is a brilliant idea. Oh my gosh. Yes, and they applied it, and they did. They did very well financially after they did that. They said, thank you for sharing that. You know what? if you had shared ideas in the first time, we wouldn't have even lost that money. Then she rolled her eyes upward like, yeah, I was telling you, you never listened. You know? Yeah. And and here's another great story. There's a woman who went through so many emotional trials and tribulations in her life, emotional abuse, physical abuse, mental abuse, since she was a kid. But she triumphed and she got through that. And she became a speaker and, author and all of this kind of thing. She made books and CDs and all this stuff. So she was presenting for many years to this audiences of women, but no one responded. In fact, as she was presenting, many people looked sideways, were talking to each other, and even when she went to the climax of her presentation, nobody stood up, no one clapped, nothing happened.
Wow.
So she was so frustrated, like, what? She came to me and she gave me her PowerPoint. She said, Deepak, I went through all these trials and tribulations. I don't see how anyone could not be inspired by this. And I said, I looked at her PowerPoint. Oh my God, yes. She goes, what's the deal? She goes, I said, your PowerPoint is perfect, but it's not the PowerPoint. She said, then what is it? I said, well, it's you. It's your voice. Even as you're talking to me now about this frustration, I can barely hear most of the notes in your voice, which is a reflection that you have all these emotional ancestral limiting patterns from your childhood that were squashing the notes in your voice, basically. So I said, trust me, work with me. So I worked with her. I cleared those limiting patterns. I could hear her voice very beautifully afterwards. And then I said, I want you to do that same exact presentation, verbatim from the PowerPoint, to basically the same group of women that never worked before for many years. She said, but that was so humiliating, Deepak. I said, I know, but you're not the same woman. Trust me. I verified that. So she did the same exact presentation, verbatim, every word on that PowerPoint, the same. As she was doing the presentation, she looked in the audience. Tears were coming out of the women's eyes. They were fully focused on her, not talking to each other. And when it came to the climax, the same one that nothing happened, the women stood up on their feet. And there was a thunderous applause, like with all the women, tears
Wow.
coming down their eyes. Then they all went to her and hugged her, and they bought her courses and everything she was selling, which never happened before. She came to me and she said, Deepak, this is the first time in all my years that this ever happened. I said, I'm so grateful to you. I said, sure. I said, you always had that potential. I just helped liberate it out of you. So she was seen and heard, okay? And that's why women also, which many I've worked with, many of them would draw these neurotic, horrible, narcissistic, mean, condescending men in their life over and over again. And they said, Deepak, I never wanted a relationship like this. Why am I drawing it? I said, you are a wonderful woman. Fantastic. It's not you, it's the programming, which I can hear in your voice. But as I started clearing it, what's amazing is those horrible men started fading out of her life, and then she started drawing these wonderful, loving, nurturing men, which she also, like me with the bullying, had no concept of. So when I started working on her, she started drawing these loving, nurturing, wonderful men. She goes, Deepak, I think I can go for these men. These are wonderful. I said, well, we just started this process. I wanted you to see how powerful this is. Have fun, go out, date, go dancing, do whatever you want. But just hang with me. We just went to the first train station. Just hang with me. So I kept working with her. And then the men were even much better after the next couple of weeks of working with her. Then she said, oh my God, okay, now Deepak, this guy's twice as good as the previous one. Now I got to go for this. She goes, I'm saying hang with it. Have fun. Do whatever you want. Go out and have a nice time with them. But just hang with me. So as we went further, they just kept getting better and better till they finally came to a place that she said, okay, I think this person's my soulmate. And she went for that, and they're still together, a decade later. So,
Wow.
and I have many stories like that. So this is the power of this work. It can literally change your reality. Even if you're a businessman and you're kind of stuck, you're hitting a ceiling, you're like, I'm not able, or you want to go to a different managerial level, and you're just not able to get through. I can hear your voice and find out what that limiting belief is that you don't even know is there, clear it, and then suddenly you'll be able to achieve that. I've done this with many business executives too.
That's so powerful. The power of transformation will never cease to amaze me. Um, my question to you is, so what are the benefits, or I guess what's the difference between someone using this advanced biofeedback technology versus someone going to therapy, or, you know what I mean, just kind of uncovering
Yeah.
their childhood traumas and issues that way and talking it over and then transforming their life? Like, what do you think the main difference is? Could you achieve the same thing, you know?
Well, this is what I've seen. I can't speak on other things like talk therapy and other things, but I can tell you this. A lady who was 90 came to my office, and she had had that kind of and I'm not saying anything against any kind of other therapies or anything, but she had, this is what she told me, she had had 65 years of talk therapy, and she was still severely depressed. That's what she went to do that with, because as they were talking about the situation. And this process I do goes deep into the subconscious where the actual imprints are, like an elevator, and releases it layer by layer in a quantum way, in a faster way than conventional. So anyway, she came to me saying her whole life she had horrible relationships and was mentally and physically abused, and just drew horrible things in her life. And then in the retirement home, all the people, as she said, hated her. She had no friends. Even the people who were helping her to carry things to her apartment didn't want to really help her and were mean to her as well. So she was the outcast there. And she didn't want to live another day in her life. She gave up on living. So I said, no, we can't have that. So I'm glad you came to see me. So I started working on her, clearing those limiting beliefs that ultimately tracked it back to her childhood. Mm-hmm. And it went back to when she was 7, and a teacher had told her that you're not pretty, you'll never amount to anything, you just don't have what it takes. You won't be a success in your life. I don't know why a teacher would say such horrible things, but this is what happened. And that's what stayed with her and created all those situations, relationships, issues, all these unfortunate situations in her life. But the good news is she came to see me. I started clearing these imprints and patterns. The moment I started releasing these patterns, she goes back to her retirement place to buy some groceries, get some groceries, and the guy immediately comes to her car, who was not very helpful or was kind of mean with her, and said, "Ma'am, can I help you carry your groceries into your place? Where would you?" And she was like, "He never talked like that. Where can I put them? Is there anything else you need help with? May I help you walk back to your place?" She was like, "This is the same guy?" And then she went to her apartment, retirement home apartment. There's all these gifts by her door: wine bottles, cheese, bread. She was like, "Who's putting that?" New people going there thought she's the main key person to connect everyone in that place, even though she was an outcast. And then all these people started inviting her to all her family reunions, and she's not even a family member. So she got all these friends, all these wonderful experiences, and then she started having a joy for living each day versus giving up. So she came to me after all these follow-up sessions and said, "Deepak, everything's going great. I have more friends than I can count, but I have a problem." I said, "What's your problem?" "I've been invited to so many parties, so many reunions, that I can't go to them all. I'm going to have to say no to half of them. How do I say no?" And I told her, "Well, no one ever said yes to you, and you didn't say yes to anyone either. So it's okay. I'll teach you how to say no. It's no problem."
What a nice
So
problem to have.
exactly. And many people have told me, and I'm not here to comment on other modalities, like, I had this many sessions with this kind of technology, or this many sessions with this kind of therapy or whatever, and they still had the same issue. But when they start working with me, they get the results they want. My process, I'll just say it like this, versus going over the same issue and just discussing it, then that's the conscious mind getting involved, and you're just like, okay, yeah, okay, this happened, okay, but you still have the issue. The process I do actually goes deep into the core of what actually created it and starts releasing it or harmonizing it, as I discussed with that keyboard. It's like a reverse engineering to go to the root of it. You don't have to understand the emotions or why you have them. It's okay if you do. We just go and release those limiting emotions that you didn't know were there, layer by layer. So for example, if somebody comes in with a lot of anger and rage, and I help release it, and they may have had that for years and years, and then as I release that, then they feel suddenly happier. But then underneath that rage from the past was sadness. So then sadness may resurface, and then tears will come, and they'll cry that out, and then other emotions below that, in the layers that they were programmed from their childhood. So we go to the root cause. That's why I think it's so effective.
Yeah. And I think people, you need to find what works for you, but I just love
Exactly.
your technology because it does go to the root. Because one of the people who I found when I was studying the law of attraction and just a lot of spiritual concepts, metaphysical concepts, is Dr. Joe Dispenza. And
Yeah.
he talks about telling the new story to create your new reality. So I think when you are consistently, like, it's one thing to point at the problem, to kind of see what is wrong, but I think I like how you go beyond, and it's like, okay, we've identified that you feeling bullied or maybe are stuck in the same job, same position, same relationship, but it's like, okay, where did that come from and how do we heal that? And so I really, really, I just love that aspect of the work. And then I want to know, so what would you tell people, like, what advice would you give to people if they do feel stuck or maybe they're that in that position of being bullied where you were, or in a relationship or attracting partners that they don't want, and the thing of being in this age of technology, like we have all these resources, you know what I mean, we have everything at our fingertips essentially for how to heal, what to do, what to read, what to listen to, what to watch, you know. But people are still going through their things and, you know, on their own respective journeys. So it's like, what advice would you give to someone who is stuck or maybe in a position where they do want to change their programming, or they know that something is wrong because they keep arriving at the same thing, or they can't get past a certain point? Like, what advice would you give them?
Well, oftentimes people are in fear, which is the most common thing. Fear to move forward. Oh, what if I do something wrong? Maybe they're afraid of the future. Maybe they're regretting what happened in the past and they feel stuck. You see, our subconscious, we think our subconscious is here to make us successful. But our subconscious is here to keep us in a little box that it thinks is keeping us safe in. Even if that's keeping us doing self-sabotage things, drawing the same relationships or negative situations like my bullying, or other negativity in my life, like drawing negative situations. It could be negative situations, like I keep getting a flat tire when I go to an important meeting. I keep missing the exit, which I needed for a very important meeting with other people or whatever. The subconscious is creating that to keep you safe, it thinks. So what I do is I go into subconscious, I see that pattern, and then I just basically take those limits on the top and bottom. So you see everything versus like in tunnel vision from the whole thing. So if you're feeling like stuck, like, oh, I don't know what to do, or I'm afraid to do this, they say fear is false expectations appearing real.
Mm-hmm.
And the fear is a limiting belief itself. So if you're afraid to do something that you know is for your benefit, you know that's because of a subconscious limiting pattern from your past.
Mm-hmm.
So just know that you can always question that. Question like that limiting thought. Like say, what is that thought? Oh, you can't do this. You don't have what it takes. You don't have the skill level. Well, who said I don't have the skill level? Who says I don't have the potential to learn what that is? You know, so you question the subconscious. But the thing is, that's great, and that's a starting point on a conscious level. But if the subconscious programming was so deep, it might override you trying to consciously try to go against it. And what I do with this process is I say, instead of trying to go against the wind and say, I'm going to do this no matter what, because the self-limiting beliefs say, no, you're not. You don't have what it takes. I get the wind of the subconscious to go behind you versus against, versus how it is currently against you. So you don't really have to put much effort, and the subconscious will actually propel you forward.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine a beautiful car, a Lamborghini. It's one of the most beautiful cars in the world. But what we do is we put our subconscious, which has the mentality of a 5-year-old, in the driver's seat, and we're sitting in the back seat hoping for something good to turn out of it. The subconscious mind has tremendous power. It will attract situations, events, and circumstances in our life that we couldn't consciously create, just like me getting into this work. But what happens is we're putting it in the driver's seat. It should be the turbo power, the rocket fuel in that Lamborghini car, shall we say. But we should be driving the car with the direction it goes, and it should be powering it, creating the situations, circumstances, events in our life that we just take advantage of. So that's what I have to do. That's what I do in this process, to educate the subconscious. It's often beyond our conscious awareness. But in the moment, at least the person can question when you have a fear, you want to question, is this real? Or is this just a false expectation appearing real? Is this something that's holding me back? And subconscious thinking is trying to help me. You can question it. But one thing I want to tell your viewers and listeners, no matter how long they've suffered, no matter how much trauma and tribulations they've gone through, how much unhappiness they've had, negative relationships, negative situations, trauma, or whatever, emotional abuse, physical abuse, whatever happened in their whole life that keeps repeating, there is hope. you can have the life that you always dreamed of, even if you don't know what that's like or what it would feel like. You can have that. I wanted to send that hope to all of your viewers and listeners. You can
Thank
definitely
you.
have that.
Wow, thank you. And that's so beautiful. And that's the whole thing of me just healing the mind, body, and spirit. And this is kind of like a combination of everything because it's the mind, it's the subconscious mind, and what you think influences how you act and the things that you do. And then, I mean, it's all spiritual. I think everything is spiritual. So,
Yes,
yeah, it's just
true.
a really amazing work. And I do want you to share where people can connect with you. Where can they find your work? Where can they experience your work? I am going to link his website in the description. So you can definitely find it there. But yeah, how can people find you? How can people connect with you?
Great question. So if someone wants to find out about my work, and also I offer a complimentary 15-minute consult with me, no obligations, where you can just share with me what's the challenges going on in your life, and because I customize my program for each person, and I can share with you, tell me your goals, where you are, what challenges you're having, what you'd like resolved, and what would you like to experience in your life, and I will create a plan for you of how we can get from where you are now to where you would like to be. There's no obligations, and then I'll share with you how my program works, and then if you'd like to go further, we can go from there. So to do that, all you have to do is go to my website, which is www.fastanxietyhelp.com, and I'll spell that. www.fast, anxiety, and then help, help.com. fastanxietyhelp.com. Go to that website. You can read about my work. You can also, I recommend you click on the testimonials tab so you'll see how so many people have benefited from all walks of life. I worked on people from age 18 to 90, and you might connect to some of them. And then you can go into the website and then click on the schedule, so you can schedule a complimentary, no obligations 15-minute consult with me by Zoom. And we can go from there. We can do it by phone if you like as well. So that's what I recommend for all of your viewers and listeners.
Okay. Well, perfect. Well, that was all I had. I really, really appreciate your time here. Thank you for your energy. Thank you for your wisdom, and for all of the work that you've done to help people. And yeah, I really, really support what you're doing, and I thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, Samara. It was such a pleasure to be on your show.
Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for watching. I hope you got something from the episode. And again, Deepak's website is going to be linked in the description, along with the information about his free 15-minute consultation. Please check that out. He might unlock or uncover something in you, in your subconscious mind, that you didn't even know was there. Something that could help transform your life, or if you have a place where you feel like you've been stuck, he might be able to help you out with that. So thank you so much for listening. And until next time.